Hey, I muted my mic for a second. We're doing this live. Welcome back to Starlight Beacon Transmissions. This is episode 16, our first live show. Uh, sorry, I had my mic muted for a second there. My name is Eric Mitchell. I am one of your hosts, and joining me, as always, is my amazing co host, Dana Rodriguez. Dana, how are you? It's the live show. How are you doing?
I'm good now that I can hear you. I was getting a little worried for a second. I was like, oh gosh, I literally don't know what to do right now. But now I can hear you, and I had prepared to have one of the greatest shows ever with my two best buds on this podcast tonight.
Absolutely. We are going to have so much fun tonight. I already see that we have a few people in our chat as well. I see Rural Farm Boy. He's a big supporter of the show and super, super awesome guy. My brother in law just subscribed to our channel, so this is awesome. Before we get into the fun and before we introduce our panel for tonight, we do want to talk about a couple of things, with today, especially being June 19th, which is Juneteenth. And then we also want to talk about Pride Month in just a little bit. So, Dana, you and I had talked about this, and we just felt that it would be the best way to open the show to talk about Juneteenth. So, um, hey, Farm Boy. Uh, go ahead, Dana. The
Yeah, I
floor
just
is
wanted
yours.
to start off and say, we are observing Juneteenth on this show. Juneteenth celebrates Black freedom and highlights African American culture and tradition, which is an extremely important part of this country. It's an opportunity to learn about American history and recognize the ongoing struggle against systemic racism that persists even today. So I appreciate you guys like kind of letting me voice that. It's something that I really, you know, resonate with. I really feel strongly about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed your Juneteenth. Recognize, reflect, and persist with the peace.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to talk about this, especially with everything that's going on in the world today. This last year was, hey, Vader's girl, thank you for the sub. Um, this last year was a very tough year for everybody, and we did see a lot of racial tension, and um, that was a little that was a little rough to get through, and it opened our eyes to a lot of things that was going on. So I just want to let you all know that, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, sexual orientation, what have you, you will always have a place here. This is your home, so you can always come here, and this is a safe space, and you will never be judged. Also, before we get into Pride Month, Rural Farm Boy is saying that it's his middle girl's 19th birthday. So happy birthday, to
Happy
Royal.
birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday. Um, and yeah, John with the golf clap there. And before we get into introducing our panel, I just want to share a few words about Pride Month. This month is Pride Month, and uh, I just want to let members of the LGBTQ community know that we love you, we're proud of you, we support you, and you will always have a place here, as I just said. And we are here to celebrate you, and we are happy to celebrate you. So just come on in. Let's have some fun and let's talk Star Wars because that's why we're all here. These movies brought us together, and we're here for it. So let's get into the fun. We're going to now introduce our panel. These two gentlemen are two of our closest friends. We all met doing esports stuff in the DMV community. If you're unfamiliar with the DMV, that stands for the District, Maryland, and Virginia. It's the capital region, essentially. And I just want to introduce these two. Joining us are Mr. Joey McDermott and Mr. John Byram from the OTN Network. You can catch their podcast Level Up Live on Twitch and on Apple Podcasts and wherever other podcasts are. They are two of our biggest. They are two of our friends that are two of the biggest Star Wars fans that I know, and we're just so happy to have them here. So,
Clearly, you can catch John on Exegol as well, as you can see.
yes, yeah, that is true. John spends his time helping Palpatine clone Snoke's on Exegol, and possibly Omegas too.
Possibly.
We don't know yet. We don't know. That's for speculation later on. So I just want to take some time to talk to our panel, have them introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about your Star Wars journeys and what your favorite Star Wars movie is. Go ahead, John. We're gonna go with the Imperial sympathizer slash Sith Lord.
First, thank you for finally having a representative of the Empire on the show.
Of
I feel
course,
I feel like we've been severely misrepresented in the Star Wars universe. The
absolutely.
First Order did not do us any justice. They were really bad, and they even picked a really bad name. But we'll go from this. Hi everyone. I'm John. Like Eric was saying with OTN Media, but my love for Star Wars goes all the way back to when I was a kid. My dad introduced the series to me. I think when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I've been hooked on it ever since. I remember when the prequel trilogy came out, and like that was a massive moment in my childhood. And I mean, I felt like a complete loser doing it, but I totally dressed up to go to episode one when it came out. So I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been watching it like for most of my life. I've been loving Disney Plus. Might be the best money I've ever paid for an online subscription to. Just with all the Star Wars content that's coming out, and yeah, it's great. Like it's a part of who I am, and I usually don't go more than a day without having some kind of Star Wars reference thrown somewhere. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. Welcome to the show. I know that we tried to have you guys on at the beginning of the Bad Batch season, but due to technical difficulties on my end, which you blame Joey for,
I'm
because
always it's
because
always
that's the
Joey's
thing.
fault.
Um, we
He
couldn't
is
do
a
that.
rebel sympathizer. He's a rebel sympathizer, and he needs to be dealt with. I'm sorry.
I think
Like
a
it's
lot of us are.
You're on the wrong podcast, John.
Yeah.
no, no. I
I
am
can, I can
here to tell the truth of the Empire.
I can
Yes.
point you to Sith Wayfinder podcast if you want.
I'm down.
Okay. Also, go ahead, Joey. Welcome to the show. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. Very similar backstory to John's in that sense. I got started, I believe episode 5 was the first one I actually watched. They were doing like a theater special at one point. I think it was like a Regal Cinema
Yeah,
where they're going through all of them. My grandfather and I went to that one. So that being the
I
first
am.
one, being that first introduction to the series, ended up being a big transition for me into the series as a total. But yeah,
Yep,
overall,
there
Star
we
Wars
go.
is great. John mentioned Disney Plus. It's the second best online subscription out there. There is Game Pass. You guys knew I had to bring it up at least
Oh
once.
my god.
I'm sorry. It had to come out.
Oh,
I'm
He's
out.
a walking
no.
Microsoft ad.
We
I
are,
had to.
oh
It was the
man.
perfect setup.
The
John put the ball in the tee,
Disney.
and I had to swing at it. But yeah, overall, I love the series. I love Star Wars. I think Bad Batch is phenomenal. You guys got me into Clone Wars, which
Yeah.
I think really has opened me up to Star Wars in a different direction. Not only just looking at the movies like a lot of people do, but diving into what they can be done in TV series and books and all these other types of mediums. Video games is another one I'm closely connected with as well. So I love seeing Star Wars not only as just a big universe, but a very big connected universe now.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your favorite movie? I don't think you told the chat.
I am The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars
Awesome.
Episode 5. Yeah.
OG.
And
I, I totally forgot to say mine.
yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
realized that. Yeah. If you can guess, I am a big Last Jedi fan. I love the story of the Jedi coming back. That's a total lie. Revenge
Yeah,
of the
that's
Sith.
not true.
Hello.
Nice.
Yes.
By far the best movie. Period.
Yeah.
I know some people are sympathetic to Solo. Eh,
Oh,
Revenge of the Sith. Literally, I mean, regardless of if you think the acting was subpar, whether you think there are certain moments that were boring, I don't care. The fact that Episode 3 tied the story of Anakin to Darth Vader to the original trilogy and completed that storyline, that alone was enough to make every single grown man around me in the movie theater break down in tears. And if that is something special. Episode 3 was by far the best. I still watch it. I'm not gonna say like every week, but like when I feel I'm in the mood to watch a Star Wars movie, I usually go to episode 3.
No,
Respect.
episode 3 is a great one. I think that's your favorite one too, Dana.
That is for sure, hands down, my favorite.
Facts.
Episode
facts.
3 is definitely one of those movies that is it's for us at that time it was the end. That was it for it. And to just to go back, regardless of how you feel about Hayden Christensen, the guy can act. And episode 3, he really brings it in that movie. And I think it was also Ewan McGregor helping elevate him in that movie to act. And yes, there's a porg on my shoulder. Um, but uh, that movie's just absolutely incredible, and it's definitely in my top 5 when it comes to Star Wars movies. Return of the Jedi being my favorite, just because of that story of Vader's redemption and how Luke almost crosses the line to save his father. So let's get into the news here. It's awesome to have you guys here. As Dana and I are big gamers, you guys are big gamers too. And E3 2021 just wrapped, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about this. And I know that you guys kind of talked about this a little bit on your show this past week, but I want to talk about the lack of Star Wars content at E3 2021. And I don't know if you want to break it down by panel or just jump right into it, but let's dive into E3 2021 and what was a huge whiff by these studios, not to mention anything Star Wars related, considering they're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say part of it's a whiff, part of it is just stuff isn't ready. And we've seen, like, if you guys remember Cyberpunk, it got released with a bunch of different bugs and it had a lot of critical feedback. You had Halo Infinite shown last year. A lot of people not heavy or happy with that level of graphics that were shown then.
Oh yeah.
So overall, the biggest thing right now is like game developers are nervous to show stuff. They've seen a lot of negative criticism come out. They want everything to be ready when it's going to be shown. Now, with that being said, I would say there's like 3 Star Wars projects that are probably ready to show something at this point. We didn't see any of those come out at E3. I think you'll see 1 to 2 of them at the EA conference later in July, though.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, I think the big thing that we all need to remember is that we've all been kind of locked away for the past 15 months.
Yeah.
Dealing with the ongoing, pandemic. I don't know if we want to say the P word for YouTube, but we'll throw it out there at least once.
We're gonna get demonetized. It's fine.
So, it's just one of those things where it's like, we're seeing a lot of game titles get delayed. We're seeing a lot of studios switch from being in their studio, in their office space with everything they need to working remote with maybe 70% of what they need, maybe 80% of what they need. Maybe they're limited to how often they can go into their office.
Yeah.
It's just everything slowed down so rapidly that it felt like if we were going to get anything, it may have just been a title.
Yeah.
It may have been, maybe a small little CGI teaser that gave us a little hint of what might be coming, but nothing in concrete. Because, again, I mean, it's just really difficult to work on a AAA title from home. And a lot of studios, even ones that have been around 20, 30 years, are struggling to adapt to do that as well. Now, with everything kind of going back to the way it was pre-COVID, it's just, everyone's starting to slowly ramp their studios back up. And again, that's just here in the U.S. Other countries are still dealing with the pandemic, the P word, in other ways. And some countries are still having really bad waves of infections. So, as a whole, nowhere near out of the woods yet. But it's one of those things, like Joey said, with Cyberpunk and how horribly that was received. A game that was in the works for 10 years, even before what we experienced the past 15 months. Studios are now nervous. They don't want to put something out there because it could damage that reputation. The last thing you want to do is damage Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think you're right too. Another thing is like the quality of games that they're promising or kind of like they're chatting about
Yeah.
are so high quality. Like
Yeah.
I honestly, and I know you guys agree too, like you'd rather just wait for the highest quality Star Wars game possible, even though it is frustrating, all these conferences, like nothing's being said.
Yeah.
But we all know it's going to be like so mind blowing.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to Ubisoft, as much as I didn't like that press conference, and we'll talk about that another time because Joey knows my thoughts on Rainbow Six Extraction. Um, I think you had to showcase the Avatar game before you showcase the Star Wars game that they're working on, uh, because as Joey has told me before, for in order for Ubisoft to work on said Star Wars game, they had to make an Avatar game first to see how Disney received it. So I can see why they didn't do it there, but when it comes to EA and Microsoft, they have that partnership with EA Play being on Game Pass. They could have at least just teased a title for Fallen Order 2 or just given us an update saying, "Hey, Battlefront 3 is in development." Also, like early development. We don't have anything. Yeah, fingers crossed. Um, we don't have anything on that yet, but it's in the pipeline. We are working on it. And I think what Joey said also, when it comes to EA, they're probably saving these titles for their summer event because they want to knock it out of the park for their summer event. They want to surprise the fans there. Now, when it comes to Nintendo, Star Wars Hunters is supposed to be coming out this year. Nintendo had every opportunity. Yeah, this year. I mean, come on. They told us Breath of the Wild would be this year 3 years ago, but due to the P word, that's what we're going to say, they had to delay that. But with Hunters being in development and supposed to be coming out this fall, you could have given me a gameplay trailer or another cinematic trailer just to tell me what it's about, to get me, to get me ready for it. I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
I mean, again, it comes down to how much they're willing to share because,
Yeah.
if as soon as you put a trailer out, expectations are made.
Yeah.
If that trailer shows one thing and then 6 months, 8 months, 12 months later, you release actual gameplay and it's different, you open yourself up to being, challenged and ridiculed on social media, just
Yeah.
in the gamer industry, the game industry, the game media. It's kind of like, compare it to Starfield. If you
Yeah.
watched E3, the Xbox Bethesda showcase, you saw Starfield. Um, that was a beautiful trailer for what the game's going to be. How much information did we actually get from that trailer? Little to anything. Like, we
Yeah.
already knew it was going to be a space-based game. Yeah, we got to see the graphics. Yeah, we got to see a ship. Yeah, we got to see a person walk around. But that was pretty much all we saw. We don't know what kind of gameplay it is. We don't know what kind of, what kind of missions we're going to see. We don't know what the bad guys are going to be. We don't know anything. Very short and to the point. I feel like that might be the only way you could get away with it.
Yeah.
But even then, now we have an expectation for Starfield.
Yeah.
There's an expectation there that the next announcement has to be along those same lines. If they came out and next thing you knew, it was like, they turned into a 3D outer space chess game, you're gonna be like, a very extreme example.
Yeah.
But you put that standard out there. So that's the thing, is if you're going to announce something, especially with Star Wars, because Star Wars will hit people that aren't just Star Wars gamers. It'll hit the
Yeah.
Star Wars community in large,
Yeah.
which a lot bigger. So you have to make sure whatever you have is ready.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the
Absolutely.
thing with Hunters. Like, I thought Hunters was going to be 100% of a lock in the Nintendo showcase.
Yeah.
I think the big thing to look at is the Pokemon Unite was not there either. And that
Oh,
still
yeah.
is technically on track to release in July. And then I think it's going to release on mobile phones in like September. So the fact that they held out a Pokemon game that hasn't really been talked about in like 6 months at least, I think does in some way portray well to what Star Wars could be working on there. Like maybe we get just a small 20-minute direct focusing completely on Hunters. I think that's a possibility if it is still on track to release this year. As far as Fallen Order goes, they are ready to show gameplay. I think it comes down to when they think it's going to release. So if it's going to release after E3 next year, I think they save the gameplay for E3 and they do like I don't know, like a title teaser or some kind of CGI trailer or something like that. If they think it's going to release in the first half of 2022, then I think you'll get gameplay in July.
Yeah.
And the other big one, so EA has another project in the works. Now, for those that know EA and Star Wars, we've seen stuff get canceled in the past.
Yeah.
1313 was one of those big titles. If you guys haven't heard about that one, go look it up. I think there's another project that could get released later this year from EA, but it could have been canceled as well. I'm not 100% sure. If it does get released, it's going to be a smaller game like Squadrons.
Yeah. Absolutely. To just go into chat real quick because of Royal Farm Boy here. This is a porg, and this is the shoulder porg that you can get at. This was the first one from Shop Disney, right? Yeah. So this was the first one from Shop Disney. My wife tweaked it a little bit. She gave him Mickey Mouse ears. And then the new Emos line is out. It's like this plush line, and they have like a Star Wars Spirit jersey, so she put the Spirit jersey on him. So I
That
just
is
wanted,
adorable.
yeah.
Love it.
So I just wanted to let chat know because I know that Farm Boy here was wondering about it. So I think that you guys have great points about EA, about Nintendo, and about Microsoft in general. Dana, I didn't really hear much from you, but you did talk about last week how you feel that a lot of developers um, are timid
They're
to show
terrified.
these games because, as John and Joey said, it impacts the Star Wars community as a whole, and it's a big thing. And as I said last week, we consume everything when it comes to Star Wars. If you give me just a one still, like the Obi-Wan costume photos are starting to come out now. People are like trying to dissect it. So, but all you see is a trash bag with some boots and some khaki pants because Ewan McGregor doesn't want anybody to see it.
I think
So,
another thing is John brought up an awesome point is like these Star Wars people might not even touch this game. They might even just buy the disc to have the hard copy
yeah.
sit in a glass case. Like that's where we're at with Star Wars memorabilia fandom and how these people react to news, how they absorb content, how they buy things. They
Oh
do
yeah.
it could be $100 game. People are buying it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another great point. So let's move on from EA and from E3 because Dana, you and I had a pretty big EA bashing. Well, no, I wouldn't say bashing, but we criticized them a lot in our last episode.
They
Yeah,
deserved it.
They
they did.
did, they did, and I'm a huge fan of Star Wars Squadrons. I love Star Wars Squadrons. I also love Battlefront 2. I think I know John, you're on the fence about it. Joey, you seem to like it okay. Um, you're a little more optimistic. I guess I'm the one that loves it as much as I do, but um,
I mean, we'll let the pod know right now. Our expectations were like to
they were
Pluto
high.
and back.
No,
Like,
Way
yeah.
too high.
Yeah, they were way too high, which is why I have
yes,
to just one more thing about E3, which is why I have to temper my expectations about Starfield because I
right.
want that game like right now and I need it on Xbox Game Pass like right now.
Hmm.
Um Now Joey, I you and I were talking the last E3 thing here and they showed Microsoft Flight Simulator on Xbox Series S and X and we are getting the Top Gun DLC for it. You said you wanted a Star Wars DLC for Microsoft Flight Simulator, to which John said it's already happened. It's called Squadrons. Um, how would you feel if they actually did like a Star Wars DLC for Flight Simulator? I mean, is it too much of a plug? Is it too out there? I mean, we're getting Top Gun Maverick.
I mean, so Disney and Microsoft are getting buddy buddy here.
Okay.
There's some Star Wars licenses in the Xbox camp.
Yeah.
If you guys watched the Bethesda Xbox showcase on Sunday, and they ended up doing it's like Jack Sparrow now coming in with Pirates of the Caribbean and the Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
There's going to be some other Disney stuff that gets announced here in the future as well. So I feel like the relationship is there, and it could be like a fun, even if it's just May the 4th. Throw in the
Yeah.
Millennium Falcon, throw in an X-Wing. And yeah, I get Squadrons is definitely the same kind of style, but Squadrons definitely has that more gamey, arcadey feel to it, while Flight Sim is like ultra realistic.
Yeah.
You could really go very particular with the panels and the gauges. And I just think it would be really cool. I think it'd be great for Disney. It'd be great for Xbox. It'd be great for Star Wars fans. And it's just one of those cool ideas that, again, it doesn't have to be long term, but at least to do as some little short, like gag type of thing.
Yeah. John, I see you want to weigh in real quick.
I don't.
Okay.
No, like here's my thing is I'll be completely honest. As much as I would love to fly a TIE fighter in Microsoft Flight Simulator, I don't want it in Microsoft Flight
Okay.
Simulator. That's not what Flight Simulator is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, you have Top Gun coming to it. You have an FA-18. That is a realistic, that is a legit fighter for the
Yeah.
US Navy. You have an aircraft carrier coming in. You know, everything in there has the actual real world physics, math, and science plugged into every aircraft.
Yeah.
Please, can someone tell me exactly how an X-wing flies? Like aerodynamically speaking, like you would have to
Someone
flush.
out there will tell you.
I know.
For real.
Like, you have to flush that out.
To
and then
quote
figure out-
Finn, it's the Force.
Yeah,
We'll just
exactly.
use the Force.
But when you take a look at it, a TIE fighter, theoretically speaking, if you go and take a look how aircraft actually fly, should not fly.
No,
Mhm.
it should not.
It shouldn't.
Exactly.
No.
It doesn't create lift. Yes, when
Yeah.
you're in outer space, it's completely different. But when you're under the force of gravity, it should not fly.
No.
So my problem is if Microsoft's goal is to have an ultra realistic simulator that the average Joe can use on their console or their PC, to me, it doesn't make sense to put Star Wars on there.
Yeah.
It does make sense to put an FA-18 or an F-14 Tomcat or an F-15 Eagle or whatever. Put that in the game. Yes, those are real aircraft bound by the same rules and principles of aerodynamic flight versus a sci-fi drama that under gravity they would all crash and burn horribly.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
I mean that's just me.
Yeah.
That's just my
No.
I think that's adorable, and I would agree with a lot of that. But I'm
Yeah,
just
I do
saying,
too.
for May the 4th, if we were just to set up a little server that's called like a galaxy far, far away, for example, throw some fun vehicles in there, make it last a day. I don't think there's too much harm done to the sim, and I think it is a lot of work for something like that. Maybe you make it
Yeah.
a week long. But I mean, Microsoft has more than enough money to make it happen, and Disney does as well. I'm just saying, I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility in the future.
All right.
and I get it. Like people would buy money to play that for a day.
Yeah.
They absolutely would, and I think it's a waste of money. Even though I would probably do it regardless. I would actually ask. Look, you know what? I'm gonna change my mind under one condition. They
Okay.
can go ahead and do it as long as at the end of that day, I can position the Death Star in front of that server and press delete like Alderaan and just get rid of the server afterwards. How about that? How about that? How about that? We can have it for one day and then it's gone. How about that?
Yeah,
My God.
totally. I definitely think Microsoft should let the Sith Lord make the rules.
Thank you.
Just when it comes to Flight Simulator. Just when it comes to Flight
Sim.
Simulator.
Yeah.
So let's move on here. I forgot to ask this very, very important question when we did the introductions, and I'm stealing a bit from your show here. What are we drinking tonight, guys? What are
A
we
lawsuit.
drinking?
A lawsuit. Is what
lawsuit.
you're drinking is exactly what you're drinking for stealing this bet.
Yeah. I can't wait. You can contact my my lawyer tomorrow.
I think Eric should go first. He's got the cool cup.
Oh yeah, so I am drinking. Oh, okay, that was my microphone cord. I am drinking pink lemonade vodka with Sprite, and I'm using it in this souvenir mug that I got at Galaxy's Edge. Got this at the
Nice.
milk stand.
Nifty.
So it's got the thing that it's got the thing that Luke milked in John's favorite Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. And then it's got a bantha. So you get green milk and blue milk. Just a little Galaxy's Edge plug there. But go ahead, Dana, what do you have?
Yeah, I've actually got some spiked Dalgona coffee here, homemade.
Nice. Remember to start.
Got some Baileys in there. Got to kick up the caffeine a little bit, a little late night caffeine,
Nice.
and some water, of course.
Oh, of course. I have water too. Got to stay hydrated. Joey, what do you got?
got a Hoth mule tonight. I first warmed it up in the belly of a tauntaun, and then I iced it afterwards. And now I'm sipping it to delight.
Nice.
You just traveled there and back so quickly.
You know, sometimes you just got to use your connections.
So, I have to ask, how did you cut open the belly of the tauntaun? Was it with a lightsaber?
Oh no, Eric, how would I come by a lightsaber? I had to claw at it
You had to claw
for a
at the
very long
tauntaun.
time. It got chilly out there, but we made it through the night. Now I'm back to the show.
I totally just got the image of Joey in a snowstorm, like
Yes.
using his hands to cut into a tauntaun. That's just
In shorts, as
In
well.
shorts.
because he doesn't wear anything else other than shorts.
Hey,
Oh,
I'm the same way, buddy. Go
you're
ahead.
giving me Florida man vibes, Joey.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Just need to, yeah. John, go ahead. What do you got?
I stopped by the cafeteria on the new Death Star. Oh, sorry, the battle station. Just picked
That's
up
right.
a quick my take on so on our podcast. I call it a bloody comrade because it's a Moscow Mule made with
Yeah.
hibiscus ginger beer. But that's essentially what it is. It's just vodka, hibiscus ginger beer mixed together, in a Vans cup from Vans Off the Wall because
Because you're
Vans.
just shredding the
Yeah.
gnar
Wow.
on Exicle.
For real, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, so there you go.
Nice. And I just saw your post in the chat, hashtag remember the Death Star. I thought that it was called Orbital Battle Station DS1.
Look, it is in the Empire. We have legit names for everything, but
Okay.
unfortunately, the propagandists with the rebels create the narrative. Unfortunately, because fun fact, our newspaper and printing press were on the Death Star too, so it's not like we could come out and rebuttal. So you know they blew it up along with like 2.3 million people. You know, in the name of justice, because you know nothing says justice like blowing up a Death Star for political gain, terrorists. So, yeah, yeah.
There
I'm
was
not
like
salty at all.
10 hot takes in that one.
There
Oh my
was.
God.
There was.
That was amazing. That was fantastic. Oh man, we are drinking tonight. We are having a good time. If you enjoy beverages, grab your favorite beverage. I know Rural Farm Boy here is sipping on some whiskey. Please let us know in chat what you are drinking. I see people are coming in here. Welcome to the show. We're hanging out. We're having a good time. So I know that. Well, let's move on now. We have the High Republic is going on right now. Big storytelling initiative from Lucasfilm and from four amazing writers. Yeah, four amazing writers. I had to think for a second. No, five amazing writers. Um, but it's in full swing. We're about to get Wave 2 in just 10 days. I just want to get your thoughts on Dana. I know that you're about halfway through Light of the Jedi right now. John, you're almost done Light of the Jedi. Joey, you're about to start Light of the Jedi. Um, I just want to know your thoughts from those of you that are experiencing it. How do you feel about the High Republic so far? What has been the interesting thing about this era? And where do you want to see this story go?
Yeah, I think I'll go first.
Yeah.
I just kind of like the fact that I have no visual for the High Republic other than what my mind is kind of saying with what I'm hearing in my audiobook.
Yeah.
So essentially, like that's driving me to kind of create my own galaxy. And speaking with a friend of mine who actually is a huge Star Wars fan who I work with, he was mentioning too, like the best part about it is we don't have a movie for this.
Yeah.
You know, we might get a video game soon, but like a lot of this stuff is just like what we would hope to see, you know, as a prequel to everything that we've known so far with Star Wars.
Yeah. Um, I could not agree more with that. The High Republic is such a unique era when it comes to storytelling in Star Wars because this is 200 years before the prequel trilogy. So we can go anywhere as long as, and I believe at the end of this, we are going to get the start of the fall of the Jedi and the Republic by the end of this. I think by the end of this, Plagueis is going to be making an appearance and starting to kind of turn things up a little bit. John, I just want to know your thoughts, and then Joey, I just want to know kind of your thoughts on it as well as somebody who's about to experience it.
Yeah, so I think I second what Dana said. Since it is a new era of Star Wars, and we don't have any kind of visual representation, uh, or really any kind of expectations. It's an era of the Star Wars universe that hasn't really been touched on. So as a Star Wars fan, it's going to be new. Like, yeah, we have a basic understanding. Okay, yes, there's going to be the Jedi. Yes, there's going to be the light and the dark side. Yes, we understand. Those basics.
Yeah.
But we don't know what to expect. Um, the story so far, again, so I'm listening to the audiobook version, and if you're someone who can listen to the audiobook version, I know some people just can't listen to a book on audio. It's completely fine, but the production level of it is actually really good. They incorporate Star Wars music. They have voice actors and everything else too, so it's almost like one of those old timey like radio stories like people listened to back in the 40s before TV or something. They had
Yeah.
TV in the 40s, right? I think so. So you know,
Kind of.
it's just a kind of, yeah. So like so you're listening to the story and you're hearing the voices, and like you can read along with it too. And there's certain things you pick up on is the Jedi are obviously held in very high regard still. They're not quite as entrenched in politics like we saw in the prequel trilogy, but they're getting there. You're starting to see those connections really forming. The Jedi have a lot of influence still, but it seems like they're a little more distanced from the political state of the Jedi Order,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. Introducing a new bad guy, I think that was really cool. My only complaint is I don't like how it literally centers around just one event. And for the audiobook listeners, I think this book is like maybe 9 hours long when it's read.
Yeah.
I'm on the last 45 minutes, and I am still sick and tired of hearing about the same thing that happened on page one for like the last 300 pages.
Yeah.
Like, please, for the like, and I don't say this often, but for the love of God, move the plot line on.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. I
All
I
about
get
that
that.
build.
Yeah. Just real quick, Joey. Katie Kate, welcome to the chat. This is a porg on my shoulder because I know that you asked. So yes, this is a porg. He is ready to go to Disney. He's got his Mickey Mouse ears on and everything. My wife kind of tweaked them up a little bit. But Joey, as somebody that is going in fresh, um, to the High Republic, how are you feeling about this era, and what are kind of your expectations here?
Going along a little bit with what Dana said about like imagining the setting because we really don't have too much material yet.
Yeah.
But taking it the opposite direction here, I think High Republic is going to be the first time in Star Wars history that we do end up having everything kind of released in the same window.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get a TV series. I think we're going to get a video game. I think we're going to get books. I don't know if we get a movie, possibly, but still, that's different mediums: video games, TV, books, music of some sort. I'm sure will be released. So I think it's cool being in the atmosphere now where Disney has taken this to a whole nother level since they
Yeah.
acquired the rights, where we do have the ability to kind of be absorbed within it. So right now we're doing our own thinking, we're reading along in the book and kind of forming the own worlds, but eventually we will see what they do look like here later on.
Yeah, I think that that is one of the draws to the High Republic era, and I'm kind of with you, Joey. I think we are going to get a TV series. There was Pete Fletzer from Around the Galaxy, which is another great Star Wars podcast, was talking. Remember on May 4th, Dave Filoni was on Good Morning America and was like taking questions and talking about the Bad Batch and everything. Well, Pete asked about the High Republic, and he was talking about how if there were any plans for a High Republic series, and Dave Filoni, you know how Filoni is in interviews, like he plays things off, but he also hints at things. And Filoni was talking about the great work that all five writers are doing, and how the High Republic is a great new era when it comes to storytelling for Star Wars. And he said, don't rule anything out when it comes to television. Now, I would love a High Republic animated series. I think that that would work perfectly for it. When it comes to a movie, make it a Disney Plus original movie. I mean, make it a Disney Plus original movie because I think you would draw more subscribers with that and a High Republic animated series. So, um,
Except don't make us pay $30.
yeah, I don't want to pay
Make it
30
free.
bucks for Premiere Access. I don't want to do it for that.
But
You,
if it's an original, we would have to do that.
well, no, Luca's an original, and we're not getting
Oh,
we
that's
don't have
true.
to pay for that. So,
Yeah, yeah,
and
you're right.
and we didn't have to pay for Soul either, and that was considered an original as well.
I'll tell you right now, there's no way Disney gives you anything Star Wars for free. There's
Thank you.
no way.
Well, we're getting
Movie wise, I do think they might actually charge us.
well,
But
movie
see,
wise, yes.
uh, let's be honest here, real quick though. It's $30, right?
Yeah, which
You
is
get a
cheaper.
friend or two to come over. Let's say you split the
You
cost.
charge them at the door.
No,
You
I
pay a
kid
cover
you not.
charge at Dana's house.
You know, if it costs $30 and you have several friends that are like, hey, I'm interested in going to it.
Yeah.
And again, with everything shut down the last 15 months, now you can go to a movie theater and see it. So people got reacquainted with the idea of watching movies from home with friends.
Yeah.
So if it's
Yeah.
$30, you say, okay, I'll buy it on my Disney Plus. You bring drinks, you bring popcorn, we'll order pizza. And guess what? All of that is still cheaper than going to an AMC movie theater or a Regal
Oh, yeah.
movie theater or any other movie theater. You're saving a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I mean, you get early access to it. You don't, I mean, it's not out in theaters, or it would be out in theaters then at the same time. Yeah. So, but the thing is like, no lines at the bathroom. And trust me, I'm a guy that loves going to the movie theater.
Yeah.
I like the experience overall. But at the same time, it's like if you have a great TV at your house, if you have a sound bar or a surround system or something like that, that you can kind of like replicate that experience, save the money. Don't go to
Yeah.
the movie theater. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I have AMC stock. I'll say that now up front, but like there's no point in going. Like I just
I
Yeah.
agree.
I'm looking at chat here, and I see Rural Farm Boy and Vader's Girl are talking about the High Republic, and I see Rural Farm Boys saying that he's behind on the stories, but they don't speak to him. That's fine. I mean, Star Wars is for everybody. So if the High Republic era doesn't speak to you, I know there's a lot of people that don't like the sequel trilogy, but they're still Star Wars fans. If the High Republic doesn't speak to you, and you're not interested in it, that's fine. You still like what you like when it comes to Star Wars. So you'll get no judgments here when it comes to whether or not you're reading the High Republic or not. We're going to talk about it because Starlight Beacon Transmissions. I mean, come on, we're named after the station in the High Republic, so of course we're going to talk about it. But when it comes to overall Star Wars fandom, like what you like, dislike what you dislike, but don't be toxic about it and don't gatekeep. That's all I'm going to say about that. So,
I think to my point too, like
yeah.
since we don't have visuals, it's hard for people to dig in.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, I don't really have a visual. There's new characters. Oh, well, little baby Yoda's not going to be in it, so I don't want to read it. Things like that. So I
Yeah.
think some people have their niches, and I think maybe like not having visuals is also a downfall at the same time.
Yeah, I will say this though. One of the things that I want from the High Republic is I want an art of the High Republic book because looking at that concept art, it's just gorgeous and I just want a book like that to put on my shelf eventually and just if I want to go back to it and look at it, then I should be able to go back to it and look at it. Now, granted, you can Google the images of the concept art, but it's different when it's in book form because you can just pick it up whenever. So let's move on here, and I want to cover this topic that Dana and I talked about last week, and it's a twofer. We have found out that Forrest Whitaker is coming back to play Saw Gerrera in the Cassian Andor series, and then we have heard rumors that Ben Mendelsohn is coming back to play Orson Krennic in the Cassian Andor series. So I want to start with the Mendelsohn thing because if he is coming back to play Krennic in the Andor series, what's to stop them from bringing him into the Bad Batch without giving any spoilers away? What is to stop them from bringing him into the Bad Batch and bringing him there to do the voice of Krennic? And anybody can start.
think nothing's stopping them. I mean, we already spoke about this last time. Like,
Yeah.
I think once you're in Star Wars, why leave?
Yeah.
No reason not to
Yeah.
take full advantage of like the fandom and things that come with the series. If you're an actor, like it's a huge, I mean, you hear them talk about it. It's a huge honor for them to be a part of the saga in any way, shape, or form. So I
Yeah.
think people, meaning the actors who've already participated in different shows and movies, will be crazy to say no, you know? I
Yeah.
don't think you ever see anyone say, nah, like I'm not interested.
No, I did my movie. I'm out.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely like a possibility. I would probably say that it probably will happen. Um, I mean, Krennic was a great character. Still is a great character. Why? I mean, who doesn't want more Krennic? I mean, unless you're a, you know, rebel sympathizer. Krennic is great.
There we go again.
Saw Gerrera again, another great character. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were to ask me, like my favorite Star Wars movie outside of any of the trilogies, it's Rogue One.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by all means, like any character from Rogue One, like more of that would be great. More of those characters from Rogue One being brought into the universe and really connecting that storyline. It'd be crazy not to do it. And if you're the actor being asked to come back, hello. I mean, do you
Yeah.
like money or do you not like money? Like, because if you don't like money, don't come back.
Yeah.
As simple as that. But
Crazy.
Joey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there. Rogue One is actually probably my favorite Star Wars movie at this point, outside of Strikes or The Empire Strikes Back. I feel like, yeah, it's there. The ability is there. The money is there for Disney. Like Dana said, a lot of people don't turn down the option to be in Star Wars movies. There's a couple from like the sequel trilogies where some actors may not want to come back, and there's been feedback here and there. But overall, not many people are going to turn down one Disney and two Star Wars. So I think
Yeah.
there's, I'm going to say, a highly likelihood that that could happen if those offers are at least extended.
Yeah, Krennic is an interesting thing because I think that you do need to focus on the Death Star being built in the background of this Cassian Andor show. I am hoping if they do bring Krennic into it, they got to do it in a way that makes sense. And you can still establish that rivalry with Tarkin, which I think is what they're going to do in the Bad Batch, and we're going to get to that as we get to our roundtable in a little bit here. But if you bring Krennic in, establish more of that rivalry with Tarkin, because I think that's going to be a big sell for that show. Now, when it comes to Saw Gerrera, I understand now with the Saw Gerrera thing. Are we going to get young Jyn Erso, not played by Felicity Jones, but a young Jyn Erso with Saw Gerrera at this time being trained as a freedom fighter? Or is she going to be off, like getting captured by Imperials and being imprisoned at that time?
I would like to see that, her being trained. I mean, she's
Yeah.
pretty badass. Like that training was probably intense.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
I feel like Freddie Prinze Jr. should come back and do the voiceover for that character also when they're like 12, because it's totally realistic, right?
Felicity's voice on like a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
what's
I
up,
mean,
Balaba?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
brought the reinforcements, bro. Like, come on.
Any thoughts, Joey?
Not really too many further as far as that goes. Again, I think the money is there. I think the notability of the series is
Yeah.
already there. It just really depends if that's the direction that Filoni wants to take it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so let's move on to another live action Disney show property, or Disney Plus show. And this one I'm really excited for because this is going to be 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So we are getting. I love that Disney is focusing on this era in between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy because you do need to tell these stories. You need to build up this era because for the longest time, we didn't have anything. We didn't know anything about that era except for what was in the old EU, which some of that I do miss and some of it I don't. But now we have the opportunity to really see what the galaxy was like while the Empire was building and taking control. We're going to talk about the Obi-Wan show. And one question in particular, which Dana, you and I talked about this last week, but I need to get this with our panelists here. You're a fool if you don't bring Liam Neeson into this show, correct? Into the Obi-Wan show as a Force ghost. Hey, HoloNet Marauders. I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, I mean,
He said,
Force
yeah.
Ghosts to begin with are always interesting
yeah,
because at one point in time back in the Clone Wars, they were going to have Sith be able to communicate through Force Ghosts also.
yep,
And I kind of wish they went that route. But that's another discussion. But Force Ghosts I've always found just interesting and just how they've been utilized
yeah,
throughout the entirety of Star Wars. I mean, I feel like it would be expected for him to come back as a Force Ghost.
yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if he had, what they refer to as the voice of God treatment, where it's just like his voice booming in, but there is no, visualization of it.
Voiced by Freddie
Um,
Prinze Jr.
Voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr., of course, because when you think of Star Wars, you think of Freddie Prinze Jr., or at least he tries to make it feel like it's all about him.
Yeah,
We won't go there.
no.
But yeah, so yeah, I feel like they would have to try to get him back, and at the very least, it'd be kind of like a voice of God moment.
Okay, so you don't think that we'll see him physically. Joey, what do you think? Do you think we physically see Qui-Gon Jinn talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi while he's trying to protect Luke in his exile?
Yeah, you're gonna see him. You
Yeah.
will. You'll see him. I'm pretty sure you'll see him. And it's one of those things, like even his character in general, Eric, and I know I'm sure you've talked about this on the show before. Qui-Gon is just a fascinating character, and just everything behind him and why he did certain things the certain ways that he did.
Yep.
And just he's just such a fascinating character. I'd love not only to be in this series, but I would love them to do a spin-off series of him as well.
If you want good Qui-Gon content, Dooku Jedi Lost was a great look at Qui-Gon, which I know some of you did experience. But
It's a great book.
Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. She did a short story called Master and Apprentice in From a Certain Point of View, which was the 40th anniversary short story collection for A New Hope. And then she wrote a book, Master and Apprentice, which is Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's relationship about 7 to 10 years before the Phantom Menace. So, and it's got flashbacks to when Qui-Gon was actually training as a Jedi under Dooku. I would love to see that interpretation as a spinoff. Looking at chat here, HoloNet Marauders is here, which is another great Star Wars podcast. They said that it's a huge missed opportunity if they don't bring Liam Neeson in to the Obi-Wan show because
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, last week, I don't know if I said this, but like, we have to see some sort of young Padawan Obi-Wan
yeah,
for his own show,
yeah,
which would entail a Qui-Gon, a young Qui-Gon, I guess.
yeah.
Don't know how they would do that makeup wise with Liam Neeson at like what, 70 some years
They
old.
they de-aged Downey in Civil
There you go.
War.
I
And
think we have
CGI
to
makes
get that.
everything happen
Yeah.
too.
Right, right. We have to get that. I mean, you always see the past of someone specific, wherever they are, especially in Star Wars. So I think we get a visual there.
Well, it's another missed opportunity when one of your ending plot points in Revenge of the Sith is when Yoda talks to Obi-Wan about how he's talking to Qui-Gon after Qui-Gon passed away, and how he's going to teach Obi-Wan to communicate with Qui-Gon. So that's another thing. When it comes to Obi-Wan himself, I want to see an Obi-Wan that's struggling with the decisions that he made in the prequel trilogy, especially in Revenge of the Sith. I want to see him dealing with loss because he lost his brother. He lost Anakin, and then he lost what was essentially, I mean, Padme is essentially a sister to Obi-Wan because of how close they are, but he lost her too. So I want to see that. I want to see him deal with that loss. Now, if I'm overstepping, I apologize, but I think that's something that we need to see because Obi-Wan can't just be a superhero. We need to
Mm.
see him flawed. We need to see him struggle with this.
Great.
So, So those are my thoughts on Obi-Wan show, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Come on, just show us the costume already. That's all I'm gonna say.
You know what it is? It's the
Oh,
tan suit.
I do, but I still want to see the costume. That's all.
I got you.
So
It's gonna be all burnt from the Clone Wars, but it's the tan suit.
it's the one from Mustafar that still has scorch marks on it.
Yeah, scorch marks all over. Gotta be, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
He's in hiding.
Yeah. He doesn't have a fresh tunic laying around. But one more thing about the Obi-Wan thing, I want to see him write the journals that Luke discovers in that 2015 Marvel run. I want to see Luke. I want to see him write these journals about the Jedi Order, about their ideals, everything. So let's move on. We are getting now to our spoiler review of Bad Batch episode 8. And we are going to be diving into our roundtable. So I'm going to give you a spoiler warning right now. We're going to do our overall thoughts of episode 8. Then I'm going to do one more spoiler warning, and then we're just diving in, and that's how we're going to carry on to the rest through the rest of this episode. So this is your spoiler warning. If you have not watched episode 8 of The Bad Batch yet, please do so. It's awesome. It's a great episode.
Or any of the episodes for that matter.
Or yeah, exactly. If you haven't watched Bad Batch yet, please do so. You can catch this on demand, and you can catch our audio on Wednesday. Please don't leave if you have watched it. This isn't an invitation to leave. But let's get our overall thoughts, and I want to start with Dana. What did you think about this episode?
I've been saying it for weeks. I've been waiting for some Imperial presence, something. I'm tired of the adventures. Let them stop. Let somebody come in and try and stop Omega from, having too much fun. And we got a scene, which I'm pretty sure that I predicted last week, of a Baby Yoda circumstance
Mm-hmm.
where there's a kidnapping, and I won't go too much further because we'll get into it, but I
Yeah.
kind of knew it was going to happen mid-season. I was waiting on it, and we got some badass character reveals in this
Yes.
episode.
We're gonna spill it in a second, Farm Boy. Go ahead, John and Joey.
Please, Joey, by all means.
I mean, similar to Dana, like I'm not going to say the series has been predictable, but there are definitely little elements here and there that have kind of shown themselves. I didn't necessarily think it was going to be a kidnapping, so props to you, Dana, on hitting that one on the head.
Yeah.
But
she nailed
overall,
it.
I think there were some things we expected to come out here and there. One of the things I mentioned from last week as well was the planet they're on also has ties to Jedi Fallen Order, which
Yeah.
I think is kind of cool that it kind of made a cameo in a way. Now, if we see Cal Kestis later down the road, that's a possibility, but we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So overall, I really like the way they're tying everything together, whether it's cameos from Clone Wars, cameos from other series, even video games being tied in. They've done a really good job tying everything together.
I'm
You know
gonna
what's-
say it in a second, Farm Boy. Go ahead.
You know what's really interesting is, going back to Dana predicting another kidnapping. That just goes to show, how great the Empire is at securing resources. Granted, it was a bounty hunter. I get it. But still, it just goes to show you that the good guys can't hold on to anything. So, there's that. But no, I mean, overall, I thought episode 8 was great.
Yeah.
Action packed. It was probably I think it was probably the most action since episode 1 that we've really seen. Like, we've seen hints here and there. But you had the Imperial presence, you had a really good gunfight. You had that emotional level as well, with Omega trying to reckon with Crosshair again. It didn't work out, obviously. And it wasn't predictable, but there were some moments where I'm like, I don't think they're going to go down this road if they do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then there was one part where they did, and I'm just like, wow. I was like, okay, that was kind of predictable, only because I said I hope they don't do this, and then they did it, and it made me like squeam a little bit. But we'll get to that later on here, looking at the show notes. But yeah, overall, I thought it was one of the better episodes so far of the series.
Yeah, I totally.
Just really
agree.
quick.
Yeah.
I know I already went.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
Cinematic wise, there's this one shot in this show that had me like holy crap, Dave Filoni, like you did not need to go that hard.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because Farm Boy might have a seizure in chat if I don't.
We love you, Farm Boy.
The helmet scene of
Yes.
Hunter when he's coming back to consciousness is like some war zone coming back to consciousness
Yeah.
vibes, like the ringing of the ears. Like I'm trying to figure out where loved it.
Yeah.
Honestly, genius. And I've been waiting for that like cinematic genius to be shown, and I got it in that episode.
Yeah. All right.
So just real quick on that
Yeah.
point, there was a very old Star Wars game that came out in the early 2000s. I'm blank on the actual name of it, but it was based off. But the Bad Batch has very similar ties.
Republic Commando.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the views you had in that
Yep.
game.
I love it.
So honestly, I think that may have been an Easter egg throwback to the game. But yeah, cinematic wise, like that was awesome seeing Hunter come back that way.
So we're gonna say who makes the cameo because this is awesome. Now, my wife and I were talking about this character when right after we watched it, and I wasn't a big fan of this character when he was introduced in the Clone Wars, but as the show went on, I just started to like him more and more. We get Cad Bane. Out of all of the bounty hunters that we get in the Star Wars universe, we get Cad Bane, who we all thought was just gone because he kind of just disappears in Clone Wars
I
after
think
a
Joey
while.
called the Cad Bane appearance.
You
Joey,
did,
didn't you call
Joey.
that?
I
think-
might have.
Yeah.
I'm
There's a
pretty sure you
possibility.
did.
It's like I'll take credit. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
He's like, yeah, I totally said that.
Now, when it comes to overall cameos, I thought we were going to get Cal Kestis because I thought he was going to crash on that Star Destroyer, and he was going to be found by the Scrappers. I'm kind of glad that we didn't get Cal Kestis. Now, I will say this. You hit the nail on the head cinematic wise. There's two shots in this episode that just blew me away. The first one is definitely the Hunter perspective. That is, you want to talk about powerful storytelling in that moment. That's incredible. And it's one of the most beautiful shots in Star Wars animation history. The second is when Crosshair and the troops are coming off of the shuttle and you see the steam coming down and the fog is there with the troops around him and he's just kind of walking with that toothpick in his mouth. And there were actually two toothpicks thrown in this episode. I noticed Cad Bane had one too.
Yeah.
Um, but that
It's a
was a
bad guy
beautiful
thing.
shot. Yeah, it's a bad guy thing. Let's get into
John's looking for a toothpick.
Yeah, John's now looking for a toothpick. Maybe next time you can get like an olive martini or something, and
Yeah, there you
just have that toothpick.
It's way too fancy for the
Yeah,
dark side.
apparently it is.
Yeah.
You guys just drink straight up bourbon and whiskey and everything.
Vodka Red Bulls is what we run on.
Vodka Red
Vodka
Bull.
Red Bulls.
Honestly, yes. Drink of the Empire.
It wasn't the Death Star wasn't powered by kyber crystals. It was actually powered by vodka Red Bull. Just
But
in
it
one
was
giant
powered by-
reactor.
It was powered by a bunch of frat boys downing vodka Red Bulls, is what it was.
I got a
Lots of
great idea for a
stormtroopers.
battle station. So
Jeez.
let's dive into this episode because this episode opens in a great way on Camino. We're finally back on Camino. We finally see Crosshair after 6 episodes away, about 5 or 6 episodes away. We see
How did we feel about seeing the TIE fighters fly through Camino? Because to me, that was like, oh my gosh, like there's TIE fighters flying around these Kaminoan like structures.
Yeah.
Security, hello.
Yeah. I felt that
Who
it was
doesn't want to be secure?
I felt that it was actually a really cool establishment of the Empire being in power.
Mhm.
Because towards the beginning of this show, yeah, you see a couple of the V-wing fighters flying around here and there, but you don't get as much of the heavy presence as you are seeing it now. Camino is a fully occupied Imperial world at this point. The Kaminoans are just there to do the Empire's bidding, and we're going to get into the Kaminoans here in a little bit. but we see. Does anybody else want to weigh in on the shot besides John saying that it's security?
Or saying that TIE fighters can't actually fly in real life.
Yeah, TIE fighters are cool. Here they are on Camino, but they can't fly in the air.
We don't
I mean,
know
I
the
think it
gravity
just comes to the
situation.
whole like empire coming to power thing. And we've talked about this
Yeah.
before. Like it's showing more of that and it's kind of filling in that gap that we as Star Wars fans didn't necessarily get to see in the movies because there's
Yeah.
just a giant gap. And then you go into four from 3 to 4. Now overall you're kind of getting that filled in, like what happened. You have stuff like Rogue One coming out, and now we're getting more information here and there. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just having all these little gaps filled in between the movies of what actually happened. Instead of us seeing one thing and then the result, we're now seeing how it actually happened. And I think the TIE fighters kind of represent that in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the one of the biggest impacts Bad Batch is really having. We saw, the change of currency
Hmm.
with the collapse of the Republic going into the Empire,
With the
chain
codes.
codes, and just the Empire's presence on these, in these towns and cities, even in rural planets.
Yeah.
Just how they're slowly starting to grow their area of control. And it's always interesting because I feel like in modern day there's very little representation of what like a true overhaul of power looks like,
Yeah.
especially in structured first world country ideas like that. So when you have a massive ideological change from a republic to the empire, it's just kind of cool watching that systematic change just episode by episode go, especially with, in this episode where we saw the presence of the TIE fighters and what once was a free planet. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
So we see Crosshair has intercepted a transmission from the scrappers on Baraka. They called the Empire saying, "We've got intruders on a derelict Jedi cruiser." They happen to identify them as the Bad Batch, and Crosshair knows that it's the Bad Batch. So he talks to the admiral that's now in charge of Camino, and the admiral greenlights a mission to take out the Bad Batch. So while that's going on, we have a little more bonding between my favorite. I'm going to call them the uncle and niece duo of Wrecker and Omega. And Wrecker is teaching Omega the wonderful life skill, and this is a great joke, of how to disarm a bomb. And it's not just any bomb, it's a smoke bomb, but he doesn't play it off like that. And Omega ends up failing in this test. What is this a great joke? Am I the only one that thinks that this is a great joke, is this or is this just there just to have a funny moment, just to have a funny moment at the beginning of the show?
So I'm
I
gonna
mean, I
let
think it's
John take that.
phenomenal. Go ahead, Dana.
I was just gonna say I'm gonna let John take that because what the viewers had not seen was our prior roundtable chat where
Yeah.
he touched on the fact that he's an uncle and he's
Yeah.
very close with his nieces and nephews, and I feel like joking and totally like downplaying harsh activities or the harsh realities of the world is what an uncle does in that situation
Yeah.
to try and lighten the mood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like you can easily take that scene and connect it back to when Omega was trying to learn how to use the bow.
Oh, with
Um,
Echo. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, she's still learning. Like, we have to remember, she's not a soldier. We're reminded of that multiple times, in the
Yeah.
first several episodes. So she's still learning. Like, remember, episode 2, she saw dirt for the first time in her life. She flew in outer space at the end of episode 1 for the first time in her life. Like, she's experiencing everything. So, and she's a quick learner. Like,
Yeah.
we saw she was a complete badass with that bow this episode.
Yeah.
So now Wrecker, who likes explosives, is coming in showing her that disarming explosives is a unique skill trait that could come in handy for her in her training if she's going to continue along with the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought the scene was great because it was reminiscent of that bow scene. But at the same time, Dana's right. The fact that you're like, okay, this is a bomb, I need you to disarm it. She clips the wrong wire, and the lights start to go, and Wrecker goes, well, that's essentially not how you do it. We need to run. And like she's panicking and Wrecker knows, there's no worries. It goes off and Omega is absolutely confused and Wrecker's having a time of his life
Yeah.
laughing because he was like, I wouldn't put you in that kind of a situation, but at the same time, this is a skill that could come in handy. And in all honesty, I was expecting Omega to do something like that towards the end
Yeah.
of the episode where all the fighting was breaking out. But I feel like we may see something like that pop up in the next episode or two. But I think it was a little bit of both Wrecker being an awesome uncle figure for her and her actually learning a useful skill that she can use in the series as it progresses.
Yeah. Joey, I know that you had some thoughts. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, John hit on most of them, and I agree with
All
him.
right.
I think you are going to see it come back later on. I think the way Filoni sets things up, it's definitely going to. It'll be later down the line. You'll see a flashback, and she'll remember what wire she cut back then and cut the other one this next time. The only other thing I think is just Wrecker as a character. He does have kind of that wild side, and he's a little crazy here and there to the audience. I think given that, and given the fact that he's the one in this particular situation, does make it seem like it could potentially be a real bomb, and it kind of builds it up even more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's a great moment, especially with what happened with Wrecker in the previous episode. And it's a moment for them to reconcile what happened and to rebuild their friendship. I think that it's very important. So from there we have Echo interrupting the class to tell them that they need to go inside. And as they're going inside the ship, the scrappers are watching them, and Echo and Wrecker know they're being watched, and they end up chasing after the scrappers as the scrappers break away, and they make short work of this situation. This is Wrecker being Wrecker. He jumps on the speeder and ends up uh, helping crash it while Echo does the stun work. And it's not really like an important plot point as it is them just trying to find a way to get off the planet. It segues to them trying to get off the planet. And as they're trying to find a way to, well, as they're planning on going back to the ship, Hunter comes up with the idea of raiding the ship's armory and munitions depot, as well as having Tech downloading the memory banks of the Jedi cruiser, which this ends up kind of shooting them in the foot when it comes to everything going on, because you have Hunter, Echo, and Wrecker going for the munitions, going for the armory, and then you have Tech and Omega going to the bridge. And once Tech restores power and he's working on the console, Omega walks over to another console to get some backup data, and an alarm goes off, and it's a proximity alarm. And Tech at first just thinks that it's a system malfunction until they look out the port window and, oh crap, the Empire's here. And this is where it starts to get real, because they not only have to find a way to secure all of these munitions and everything and bring it back to Sid, because Hunter's ultimate goal is to essentially pay Sid back for all the mantle mix that Wrecker and Omega are eating all the time, and all the docking fees and port fees and so on and so forth. And now we get the Empire in here, and we see that Crosshair's back. He's got a pretty big squad with him. And so they start to fan out. Most of the clones are going to the Jedi Cruiser with Crosshair, while a small group is going to the Havoc Marauder to secure the ship and to try to take out the Batch if they go there. And this is where the action, yeah, it's the Empire. This is where the action really starts to unfold here. These are some very tense filled moments for the remainder of this episode. We get kind of a stealth mission with them trying to avoid detection from the clones. Tech ends up hacking into their comms to pinpoint their location so that way they can escape from the cannon deck. But Crosshair, once again, because he's one of them, knows that that's the plan, and they cause an ambush. And from here, you get the Bad Batch starting to think on their feet. Yes, Commander Crosshair. Thank you, Royal Farm Boy. Thank you. He's now a commander, which is our boy's leveled up essentially. Um, and we have Tech and Echo come up with the idea to use the cannons as a distraction in order to start to escape. And of course, like any plan that the Bad Batch has, it's a success, but it also is a failure at the same time because they're tracked down to the ion engine exhaust port, I guess you could say, and that's where it really gets real because they almost die from the ion engine starting to ignite. But I don't want to get to that point yet. I'm just trying to set the episode up. When we There is a section where we do flashback to Camino, and we find out that the Kaminoans hired Fennec Shand. We essentially find out that the Kaminoans hired Fennec Shand to retrieve Omega. We don't know what their end game is yet, and I want to speculate on that as we get to our speculation for the rest of the season. And if anybody wants to jump in and talk about anything from like the first half of this episode, just jump in. But we have the Bad Batch. They barely escape the exhaust, and the team split, and you have Hunter and Omega on one side, and you have the rest of the team on the other. And they agree to meet back at the ship, and Hunter and Omega show up first, and they encounter a bunch of dead clone bodies. And this is where we get this amazing cameo from Cad Bane. And he shows up, and okay, this is perfect shot number 3 with this too. When they're about to draw on each other, and they're both reaching for their holsters, and you see the shot of the holster and you see the shot of their faces. It's perfect. And of course, Cad Bane ultimately wins because he does have the quicker hand. As much as Hunter is an enhanced clone and has enhanced reflexes, Cad Bane's got the quicker hand because he's been doing it longer. And Hunter's injured, he gets knocked out, and he does come and Omega's captured, and Hunter wakes up by being dragged back to the ship, and that's when we see that awesome shot from the inside of his helmet, a la Republic Commando, as John and I were talking about. Yes, and Royal Farm Boy is also saying the Kaminoans likely also told Cad Bane. My wife and I were talking about this. We have a feeling we're probably going to see more than 2 bounty hunters show up in this season of the Bad Batch when it comes to recovering Omega. I have a feeling Bosk, Dangar, maybe even Boba Fett are going to be going after Cad Bane to get that bounty. So we may even get a mini bounty hunter guild war in this show. And I think that would be really interesting. So that's what happens in this episode. Let's just talk about this. Let's talk about the tension in this episode. Let's talk about how it is predictable Omega is going to be captured. It's similar to what Dana said. It's like the Grogu getting kidnapped. I know you call him Baby Yoda. I call him Grogu. Getting kidnapped in the Mandalorian. We have to set that up for a big rescue mission towards the end of the season. Now, my thought is, do we get the Bad Batch working with other bounty hunters to take out Cad Bane and rescue Omega? Because they have the contact with Sid.
I think we do. But just from like an analysis standpoint, since I get to do this podcast every week, I'm going to touch on one thing and I'm going to let our guests really dive in with you guys because I like the way that they talk about it and I'm excited to hear what they have to say.
Yes.
So before I let them really take off, and I just want to hear everything they have to say, the one thing I have to say is rewinding back to when Omega and Tech approached the bridge.
Yeah.
there's this eerie feeling that I got watching it when Omega is like on the bridge
Hmm.
and looking out at the windows. And I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of thought in the back of my head that Palpatine prediction with Omega, I'm like, this is a weird visual I'm getting right now of Omega approaching a bridge. And if she is a Palpatine clone, like no better way to set that up to have some sort of like underlying omen or reference to that. Um, but like I said, eerie feeling. Other than that, I love this episode and I'm gonna let my dudes take it away because I know they got some spicy takes.
So I just wanna jump in real quick when it comes to that Omega point. She kind of walks up to that window in like a regal way,
Mhm.
like she knows what's going on. So
And she like looks out at the whole field, and I'm like,
yeah.
this is giving me Palpatine vibes. Like
Hmm.
that take might actually be true.
It might be. All right, gentlemen, let's do it.
So I think going back to that very same scene, because she enters into dialogue there, asking about how the Clone Wars were, like what was it like
Yep.
to fight in the Clone Wars,
Forgot
and
about
the
that.
response was, a very calculated, oh well, it was a series of battles, blah 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 blah. Okay, yes, you are correct,
All
and
right.
and Omega goes, but that's not what I'm asking. I want to know what was it like being in it, because she's looking out that window and she sees all of these different battleships and cruisers just there in a junkyard, and in her mind, with her exposure to her world, she can't comprehend what just happened. She can't
Yeah.
comprehend this massive change of government, this massive galactic war. She knows, the clones were created for a purpose, but she didn't understand what that purpose was. So now that she's getting to experience all of this, and she had that cinematic moment walking up there, as soon as she asked that question, that was like every kid's curiosity ever. They want to know what happened. They want to know
Yep.
more information because I mean, let's be real here. Kids are smart. Let's stop acting like kids are, oblivious to what's going on around them. And Omega, fully on display here, goes, I want to know more about this. I want to know what the people that I grew up with were doing and their role in the Clone Wars. I want to know what it was like. I thought that was a very interesting conversation that I wish expanded on a little bit more. But of course, the Empire showed up.
Yeah.
So, came to an end. But I thought that was a very awesome moment in episode 8, was showing that curiosity and her willingness to learn about what was going on.
Yeah. Joey, go ahead, and then I've got a follow-up question to this. But Joey, go ahead.
I want to derail this for just a quick second because you mentioned something, Eric, and I have to get your take on it. The whole Fennec thing.
Yeah.
I don't understand how her age works out in this whole series.
She's
Uh,
ageless.
It makes
yeah.
no sense
It's
to me.
it's Ming Na Wen. I mean
She's like
that's all I'm gonna
Pharrell,
say.
never
Yeah.
ages.
No, I mean she's probably about maybe late 20s, early 30s in this show, because she can't be like more than 45, almost 50 when we see her in The Mandalorian. So I have a
Because I
feeling
mean,
she,
Boba is like young at this point,
yeah,
right? He's still pretty young, and he's pretty darn old in the Mandalorian. So I'm just saying something doesn't add up too well there.
She's in high school.
yeah, she's a
She's
nice.
just like really grew up quickly.
Middle school bounty hunter is what it is.
Yeah.
That kind of is a plot point. That kind of is a missed plot point, because in Attack of the Clones, to go on the Boba Fett thing, they talk about Boba Fett being an unaltered clone, so they don't talk about him being rapidly aged. They
Yeah.
just talk about him being an unaltered clone. So that, well, also keep in mind, Boba Fett was in the Sarlacc pit for a long time too, so that's why he's looking as rough as he is.
Stress has aged him.
Yes, stress has aged him, and if you've ever watched that Robot Chicken Star Wars, him being in the Sarlacc pit with the weak way, it did a number on him. But anyway, my question was going to be, when it comes to Omega, because she does ask about the war, like John said, like Joey said, like Dana said, but she's on Kamino. We find out that she's been on Kamino her entire life. Did Omega witness the Battle of Kamino in Clone Wars? Because if she's on Kamino and in those cloning factories, she had to have some inkling of what the war was like because it was attacked by the Separatists in Clone Wars.
I'm gonna say no.
No?
Mhm. Her curiosity is just too intense for her to have any sort of like a memory or experience. And if she did have a memory, I feel like her asking Tech those questions would have triggered a flashback or something.
Yeah. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah. No, I feel like it would have been easy enough to like shove her into something and just keep her out of the fighting, like into a
Yeah.
closet or whatever. But age wise, I think she would have been born technically at that point.
Well, considering she does not have the accelerated aging either,
Right.
and she's probably what, about 9 or 10 when we meet her at the
Something
beginning
around
of the
there, I would
show.
think. Yeah.
Clone Wars are only 3 years, so that puts her at about 6 or 7.
Right.
So I I don't know. I just thought that I should bring that question up because you think it's after. Okay, you think okay. Um yeah, she could have they could have aged her a little bit and she could have been born after the Battle of Kamino also. So we don't know. We don't know what the end game is for the Kaminoans. So I have this other question here because Order 66 is a big thing when it comes to this show. This show kicks off with Order 66. Now, John and Joey, I asked you this question this past week, and I would like to get your answers for the podcast. And Dana, I would love to get your answer for this as well. When it comes to Order 66 itself, had Fives survived and exposed the inhibitor chips and exposed Order 66, would Palpatine have found a way to sweep it under the rug and still make Order 66 happen? Or do you think the Clone Wars goes an entire different direction and Palpatine is finally ousted and defeated and the war ends that way? And the clones
I,
still stay loyal to the Republic.
I mean, I'll just jump in quickly here. I think 100% it still happens. I mean, you guys saw how quickly it happened. It was like
Yeah.
a phone call. It was just a quick flip of the switch. So I think it definitely happens.
Okay.
Dude, do you want my response that I gave you when we were talking about this before? Because it was
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Let's
all right,
let's
all right.
let's do it.
So,
Because you brought up good points.
even if it's exposed, Palpatine still finds a way to carry it out. And the
Yeah.
main reasoning is because Palpatine played Fives off as a defaulty clone.
Yep.
All the other clones didn't believe him. At the start of this series in Bad Batch, when Order 66 happened, and all the other regs, if you will,
Yep.
flip that switch in their inhibitor chip and they go on the offensive, Bad Batch is still sitting there going like, I don't know what's going on. You know, this doesn't make any sense. And that continues for almost the entirety of the first episode
Yeah.
of them still being with the regs following Order 66, but their chips aren't working.
Yeah.
Then Omega comes in and even talks about the inhibitor chip, and they still don't believe her. And then you see Crosshair go in. His inhibitor chip is functioning a little bit. Obviously, the Empire fixes that, and now it's working full force, and they still don't believe it. They meet up with Rex, and Rex even tells him, shows him the scar on his head, and they're like, but did it really? And then Wrecker happens, and then Wrecker's chip comes online, and everyone goes, oh, maybe he had a point. After how many different examples did the clones finally go, maybe there is something in our head?
Yeah.
And then they had to do the experiment, and then once they finally agreed, okay, yes, there's some kind of anomaly in there, then they went under the knife to get it removed.
Yeah.
That alone goes to show you, one, how loyal the clones were to begin with.
Yep.
Two, how well engineered they were to kind of not even be aware of that chip in their brain And when it's brought up, it's just confusing for them. And 3, the power of Palpatine, because he can easily go, oh, that's a defective clone. See how crazy he is, because the way Fives reacted when he found out the truth was he was hysterical. He didn't know how to handle it, and they pretty much shut him down. So, like, it still would have happened. Palpatine would have found a way, mainly because of how the clones were designed. That chip, if it didn't go off, the clones were confused, but even when they were told point blank, there's a chip in your brain, they still didn't believe it.
Yeah. Dana, go ahead.
Pinpoint on, John. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you got to think about it, like brotherhood, loyalty. Like, even when the Bad Batch didn't have functioning chips, they were still questioning, like, all right, should we carry this out? Like, there's a choice here.
Yeah.
And they could have said, the opposite of what actually happened. Like, yeah, we're going to do it because our brothers, this loyalty, this whole army is behind us. Why would we not just carry out the activity that everyone else is doing? Very much like a follower mentality.
Yeah.
And I feel like regardless, like, it was all about that loyalty, regardless of the chip or not.
Well, I mean, we've seen how much damage Crosshair can do when he's loyal to it, and now we've seen how much damage Wrecker can do when he's loyal to the Order too. I think we're all on the same page here when it comes to Order 66, and that's what makes that 5 story so heartbreaking. I think Palpatine still would have found a way to make it happen, because he would have played it off, as John said, as this guy's just defective. Don't worry about it. Our clones are perfectly safe. They're bringing peace and security to the Republic. So let's talk about this first half of the season. And this first half is kind of a slow burn to build to the points where we're at now. We barely see Crosshair. We see Tarkin twice. Also, we haven't really seen, we've seen the Empire, but we haven't seen the Empire yet. Do we see more? I mean, are we going to shift focus here where the Empire is going to be more prominent in the second half of the season? I mean, it has to be in order to get Omega back, but how big are they going to be by the end of this first season?
Go ahead, fellas.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing how quickly the Empire is building behind the scenes as episodes go on. And I agree. I feel like the Empire has to play a bigger role in the second half of the season. If it doesn't, I mean, if we continue on the same path that we've had for the first 8 episodes, I don't feel like they really get anywhere in the story.
Yeah.
Even if the climax of the season is getting Omega back, I feel like that might be a little bit of a disappointment, because there's just so much they can dive into.
Yeah.
The whole story with Crosshair, especially after his state at the end of this episode, there's a lot of question marks now around Crosshair after essentially taking a ion engine blast to the face, for several seconds.
Yeah.
That's a massive story arc that they need to touch on. The Bad Batch as a group in whole, what is their next play? How is that story going to continue to evolve? Are they just going to be like mercenaries going forward?
Yeah.
Are they just going to be doing these side jobs for credits here and there for the remainder of the season? Or will they actually find a purpose? Where they actually discover that there is a mission that they need to help either help build the rebellion, or is their story just legit to try to get Crosshair back and try to get Omega back? And if it's the latter, then the issue then becomes what actually happens with the Bad Batch when the season's over.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's so much that they can explore, but there's also that possibility of doing just the bare minimum to leave a lot still wide open, and I would argue would make a lot of people upset if it ended that way.
Yeah. Joey, go ahead, and then Dana, go ahead, and then I've got a question to come back to.
Yeah, I would say you're definitely getting more of the Empire, and John made a lot of really good points. I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle just to get some thoughts from the group. What if they link in the Inquisitors here? So we know Crosshair's face is now messed up. We've talked about the idea of him possibly putting some type of mask on. What if they make him into some kind of Inquisitor?
Do it.
I think that'd be cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that would definitely be a good way to continue, but I guess that still puts a lot of question marks around Crosshair as a character and and that advancement going forward. Just his relationship with the Batch, if he ever does go back to the Batch.
So that kind of was going to be part of my question here, Joey, when it comes to the Inquisitors. I think that we should start to see the rise of the Inquisitors by the end of this first season. I think that it's an important thing that we need to see. Because one thing that they harped on in that third episode of this season so far is they're harping on recruits that aren't clones. So we need to see the Inquisitors. We need to see these special stormtrooper groups going out, hunting down Jedi, and saying, giving them an ultimatum saying, look, either we kill you or you can live and do this job for the Empire. And I think that that will be interesting to see once we get to that point. Now, my question here is when it comes to Crosshair himself, does this injury knock some sense into his head? Like, could his inhibitor chip now be obsolete? Or is he still going to be the gung ho Crosshair that we have now?
I'm going to be completely honest. If his inhibitor chip is now defective because of the blast of an ion engine to his face, and he's still alive, but the chip isn't, that's a major fault in the story.
Yeah.
I don't. There's no way in my mind that that can logically happen. That a bare face can take a 3 to 4 second blast of an engine that close,
Yeah.
and the only damage is his eyes are gone. He has struggles breathing, but that inhibitor chip melted in his brain, but he's still alive.
No.
That would be my biggest issues if that was to happen.
Now,
I
go ahead.
I was also going to just say before we hopped on the live, like he was wearing like the Kylo Ren, Darth Vader
Yeah.
breathing mask thing, and that thing. I feel like that in the Star Wars universe is like symbolism of like imperial power, rage, difficulty to like get by day to day. So you have to wear this breathing thing and like seem more cool and talk more cool.
Yeah.
Like that to me solidifies his position as like an evil leader.
So, my point now is he gets the breather. And this goes back to what I said before, especially when we tried to record that one episode. Crosshair's your prototype Death Trooper. Crosshair's going to be
Mhm.
your first Death Trooper because of that breathing apparatus alone. And he's going to sound mechanical when it comes to he already started to sound mechanical when he was talking about get me on the ship. Now, when it comes to the blast to the face, John, you're an aviation nut. I work for an airline in my real life job. You've been jet blasted, I'm sure.
Yes, I
And
have.
so
Yeah,
have
you look
I.
like you've been jet blasted, dude.
And so have I.
How's your chip doing over there?
So
It's still
so
working.
so if anybody knows what it's like to take that heat, it's John and I when it
You know,
comes
no,
to
to be completely honest, so back in the beginning of the episode, I talked about there's this one part that I saw start to develop, and that I was like, oh well, if they go this direction, it's gonna be really like it'd be cool, but at the same time would make me feel like really really awkward.
Yeah.
It's the part where they go into the engine because it's like technically activated the ship. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in my head going like, okay, the ship has crash landed. The systems shouldn't work,
Yeah.
but they are working. And then they're like, oh, this thing can't turn on. And Tech's like, oh, well, it technically could. I'm just like, God, if they turn this engine on and they're inside of the engine, that is going to be like my ultimate worst fear because, flying an airplane, it's kind of cool walking around the airplane, being
Yep.
next to the propellers. Or if you're lucky enough to be involved in commercial aviation, one of the popular picks for pilots is the one in front of the engine.
Yep.
And always in
had
the
that
back
pick.
of your mind, it's like, what if it accidentally turned on? Well, you become chopped up into a million different pieces. So I'm sitting here watching this. I'm going like, please don't turn the engine on. Please don't turn the engine on. And as soon as I heard the spooling sound, I melted in my seat. I'm like, oh God, it's happening. Like it's like the one fear of mine when it
Yeah.
comes to aviation is that engine. And when it was happening, I was just like, oh God, please just find a way to get out. Find a way to get out. And then when Crosshair took the blast to the face, I'm like, oh, that sucks. Like, that's not the way to go. And he didn't die, which blows my mind. But,
Yeah.
you know, it was just, that was the one part that literally I was sinking in my chair watching.
Because not only he was burned, right? He should have like been thrown like 1,000 feet in the air with how powerful that engine was. Like Crosshair should be dead.
Yes.
Like he should not be alive. Now, granted, this is science fantasy, so anything can happen. I mean, we're dealing with space wizards when it comes to this show, when it comes to this series. However, Crosshair should be dead. And he's so angry for taking the blast to the face that he pretty much goes, "No, I'm good. Let's go. And let's get these guys." And I think at some point, are we going to see Crosshair start to struggle with the inhibitor chip, or is he just that far gone?
Like I said, I think the mask thing
Yeah.
solidifies. He's gone. I mean, even if they try
Yeah.
to redeem him, I don't want them to.
No, I had to
Honestly.
ask that question because some people have asked me if he's coming back. And this cements he's the first Death Trooper. And that's how you bring Krennic in. You bring Krennic in with Crosshair. That's how you're going to do it.
Yeah. Now it's like, if you take a look at the other side, if Crosshair does come back to the batch,
Yeah.
who's the bad guy now? Like, who is
Right.
the main bad guy? There is nobody else. Like, you're not going to
No.
put a bounty hunter, as your bad guy because because Cad Bane, kidnapped Omega. You're not
Yeah.
going to do that. Who are you going to replace it with?
Well, the only possibility could be the Batch versus Tarkin at some point, and then it's
They
like
would
the
never get
Batch
close
versus
to
the
him.
whole Empire.
Yeah, but yeah, as John said, they're not going to be able to get that close to Tarkin.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, it just,
yeah.
I just don't see it. Like, so yeah. I mean, Crosshair has to be the bad guy, and if he
Yeah.
dons the mask, for diehard Star Wars fans, who were like, okay, it's another masked character. But I feel like for the younger Star Wars fans that are maybe starting to grow up with this latest trilogy, and now the newer content coming out, they're gonna see that and they're gonna have their own moment of a character, going from normal looking to donning that evil mask that everyone automatically says makes you a bad guy.
Yeah.
With Kylo Ren, we were introduced to him with a mask on. We never saw anyone really don the mask until episode 3. So this would be kind of cool if this is his donning of the mask moment, and we kind of have that same kind of scene play out with him going into a Death Trooper outfit with that helmet coming down to help him breathe also. I think that'd be pretty epic if they did that.
Yeah, and I forgot we talked about it before. It's definitely going to be a Death Trooper. If
Yeah.
you guys go and look back, there's a lot of different like little, maybe Easter eggs you can call them, maybe tips, maybe hints that it is going to go in that direction from him wearing black armor earlier on. I definitely think, yeah, he's going to be the first Death Trooper. I'm pretty confident in that at this point.
Yes.
Well, and Dana, if you want to add something before I jump in, go ahead.
No, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Give me all the Death Trooper content.
Well, and I think it's time now. Star Wars has had some bad guys that haven't been redeemed, but it's been few and far between, essentially. Um, I'm ready for a bad guy in this show that is not going to be redeemed. I'm ready for him to just be a bad guy. I mean, come on. We saw him commit war crimes 5 episodes ago when they were ambushing Saw Gerrera's troops, and it was just civilians left, and he orders them to be shot. If that doesn't tell you how far gone this guy is, he has no redeeming qualities left. And I think this final, I mean, I think Crosshair is going to be the bad guy for the remainder of this show. I think at the end you're going to have that final confrontation with Crosshair and Hunter a couple of seasons in the future, and it's going to be a rematch of who can draw first and who's going to who's going to pull the trigger. Now,
Do you think we ever get to the point of him being cloned as well for other Death Troopers?
him and Omega, yeah.
Wow.
Because I was just about to ask what the Kaminoan endgame is.
Oh
That's
wow.
that's their endgame. If you That's my speculation. Their endgame is we get Crosshair and we clone with Omega because you're still keeping the bloodline pure at that moment. And since he's enhanced and Omega's enhanced, you put his mind and her mind together in a Death Trooper, you've won.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean they have to do something because like their entire economy is based upon them producing clones.
yeah,
So they need to do whatever they can to ensure the Empire is still buying clones, and obviously they don't want them, to get average day Joes in there as stormtroopers. They want to keep the whole clone processing going.
yeah,
That would be massive if you take Crosshair and Omega, you put them together and clone them. You know, that would be the most epic Death Trooper you can think of, like skilled in almost everything Omega's learning right now, from the use of a bow to disarming a bomb, and all the different tactics that the Bad Batch use in certain situations. You take that and put them with the marksmanship of Crosshair. I mean, that is by definition what the Death Troopers are.
yeah,
So it feels like you just have to put the pieces together, but it feels like he's destined to be a Death Trooper.
yeah. Joey, I see you itching. Go ahead, bud.
I'm just scratching, you know. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, kind of with that, but I think there's going to be a lot more bounty hunter aspects involved too that
Yeah.
we're not touching on as much. Like, wasn't there like a legendary fight at one point between like Boba Fett and Cad Bane in like the lore itself?
Yeah, so it was actually an unused story for the Clone Wars, and real quick, before I get into that, Rural Farm Boy says at some point, Crosshair, we are told in the story, is going to be something we don't expect, in his opinion, and I think I, I think that's going to be something also. I think I think we're expecting him to be a Death Trooper, and he is going to be a Death Trooper, but there's going to be something in his story that we're not going to expect. I agree. But so going back to the Cad Bane Boba Fett thing, they actually wrote this episode. Dave Filoni and this team wrote this episode. They did some rough animatics for it. And the whole thing is it's a duel between Boba Fett and Cad Bane, and they both draw, and the only thing you see is Boba Fett's helmet fall, and it has the dent in it. And like the whole point of the story was how Boba Fett got the dent in the helmet. And everybody was asking, so did Boba Fett kill Cad Bane? Well, now we know Boba Fett did not kill Cad Bane, unless they're going to do this at some point in this show. And I think we have to have, because War of the Bounty Hunters is going on right now in the comics, and that's all these bounty hunters trying to go after Boba Fett to get Han Solo to bring to Jabba the Hutt. At some point, I think we need to see another bounty hunter guild war. And I think that's what we're going to get with Omega being in Cad Bane's possession. And if that lasts an entire half of a season going into next season, go ahead. Maybe keep Omega off the board for a while and just have the batch trying to infiltrate the Empire to get information while doing these jobs, and have the bounty hunters fighting each other. And if
Yeah,
any,
I'm just
I
saying, I
I
think the
agree.
bounty hunters are definitely going to have a part in this
oh
because, I
yeah,
mean, you've already mentioned the connection to the Bad Batch with bounty hunters, and we've seen it before in just Star Wars in general.
yeah.
When there's that high value target out there, sometimes you have different bounty hunters vying for different sources. So I really think that could be the direction they take it, at least for a little while.
How many did Vader hire in Empire to get Han Solo?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Dana. I saw you were wanted to say something. Go ahead. No.
No, I was just gonna say like that. Going off what you both have just said about a bounty hunter war, like in your minds, isn't that the perfect scenario to set up the December release of Book of Boba?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've got War of the Bounty Hunters going on in comics right now. Now, granted, that takes place in between Empire and Return of the Jedi, with Han Solo being in Carbonite, but that's another way to segue to the Book of Boba Fett. And this is a perfect segue into the Book of Boba Fett. Like I said, as much as I love Omega, take her off the board for a while. I
Yes.
don't think we need to see her for a while. Now,
I
granted,
want to.
there's a lot of Omega fans out there. And with what I said, they may get a little salty. And I understand why. Because she's an important part of the show. But you raise the stakes when you take her off the board. You raise the stakes. And I think, to go back to John's point, that's what the show is lacking. As much as I love these episodes, we don't have true stakes yet for the show. We just have the batch picking up odd jobs. It's like I said, as much as I love the show and I get the A Team vibe from it, I get too much of the A Team vibe from it. And
Another thing too is like this show is mimicking the exact timeline of the Mandalorian.
kind
Like
of, yeah.
I predicted the kidnapping because that's exactly what happens midway of the Mandalorian. Then in this episode we get the standoff, which we get every episode of the Mandalorian.
Yeah. My
So
brother-in-law.
it's like I feel like Omega is
Yeah.
going to be gone, and you know those awesome things that happened in the Mandalorian happened when Baby Yoda wasn't around.
Yeah. I mean, that whole one of my favorite episodes of The Mandalorian is that second to the last episode, and we talked about this, Dana, when we were talking about the Black Series figures with Mayfeld and how I wanted the disguised Mayfeld. That second to last episode of last season of The Mandalorian is one of my favorite episodes because you don't have Baby Yoda in it at all, except for at the end, I think, when he's going after the stormtroopers, or is that the episode beforehand, I think. Um, but you have those moments between Din and Mayfeld. And I think that's what you need to see. Take the MacGuffin off the board and just let these guys have these character developments. Let's see Hunter struggle with his failure to protect Omega without showing Omega. Let's have, let's have Wrecker still trying to reconcile with what he did last episode. It's time. I think it's a great time just to remove her from the show. I have a feeling next week we're going to see her, though. I just have a feeling we're going to see her next week.
It's Disney. There's no way
Yeah.
they remove her. I think maybe for an episode here or there, but there's no way you go 2 full episodes without Omega appearing.
Darn.
I know, but
Disney's all about their merch, Eric. They're
I-
going to find a way to sell it.
I know.
And if she's not appearing on screen, they don't sell as much merchandise.
but I'll tell you one thing. Going to the merch thing, I've only seen the Omega Funko Pop. I haven't seen an Omega Black Series.
Oh, just wait. Just wait. They're coming. It's Disney.
Yeah. Dana, you wanted to say something that looked like?
I was just saying, darn. I hope she goes away for a couple episodes.
Yeah, I just think
John agrees.
John, I think that you're on board too. Like, just send her away.
And I just want to say, I don't have an issue with her going away. You're just not going to get 2 full episodes in a row without her.
Yeah.
It's just not the Disney way.
I think you have to send her away to build a story.
Yep.
To build an end game or the next level for the Bad Batch, because
Yeah.
like as of right now, it's like, I feel like we're getting more of the development of the Empire, which again I'm 100% okay with.
Yeah.
But for the Bad Batch, that does nothing for them.
Nope.
They're on the run. They're outlaws. Obviously they're being looked for. They're doing side jobs here and there. That's great. That's fantastic. Yes, bring in other cameos like Rex and Cad Bane, and I get that. Like that for the Star Wars fan is going to be enough to get you excited, but long term, it's not going to do anything.
No.
Like it doesn't advance the story at all. Like it took you 7 episodes for the Bad Batch to finally understand the inhibitor chip after Omega's been saying it every single freaking episode.
Yeah.
Like Okay, cool, awesome. It took 7 to get to that point. Remove Omega, remove her smart brain when it comes to everything clones coming up, and have the Bad Batch have to actually make a move. Strategize a game plan, go into the Empire, infiltrate the Empire, and try to get her back. Honestly, maybe she's gone 1 episode, maybe she's gone 2 episodes, but the longer she's gone, like, even if it's just quick glimpses of her here and there in
Yeah.
captivity, or seeing what that next stage for her is for the Empire and the Kaminoans, like, that is enough. Whether it's like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 5 minutes, that I think would be enough to help advance that plot line and what the Bad Batch is truly trying to do.
I
Yeah.
mean, I honestly think you're going to get the empire building perspective from Omega's eyes in certain instances. Like, I think we'll see some across here, but I think her being in captivity, if she does get taken to the empire, that's kind of assuming that is where Cad Bane's final destination is. I think if she goes into that, we kind of see how the empire is being built from her eyes from a different perspective, even.
Thing I just want to say too is this is not the Omega show. This is
No.
not
Right.
like just strictly about Omega. There are 2 missions in this episode, not just one.
Hmm.
One mission is, bounty hunter gets Omega. The other mission is the Empire wants to kill the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
It is not about Omega. So even if she does disappear, that story arc of the Bad Batch still being chased to be killed is, in my personal opinion, what I would like to see more.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Everybody has great points about this. And Joey, I see your point about trying to show the building of the empire from Omega's point of view, and I think that that's an interesting way of going about it. Now, my brother-in-law just said, "Doesn't Omega go to Saw though?" No, we don't know about Omega. No, Omega's never met Saw Gerrera. Um, I don't think she will ever meet Saw Gerrera. And honestly, I'm gonna call it right now when it comes to this show. I think Omega's going to die by the end of this series. I don't think she's leaving this show alive. And my wife is just telling me I don't think
I don't think any of
yeah,
them are.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
we were just talking about it. We
Yeah.
don't think any of them are getting out of this show alive. And and I think by the end of this first season, Echo's going out. I think Echo's going to go out because I swear you've already touched my boy Wrecker once. I don't want him touched again for a while. That's all I'm going to say. And it's probably going to be Dave Filoni just being like, hey, guess what? You like this guy? Just like he did in Clone Wars. Yep, he's done. You've already seen what he can do when he's snapped. My wife says Hunter is probably going out by the end of this first season. And I think that that would kind of be a Game of Thrones Ned Stark type situation where you kill your main character, but Dana, you're right. This isn't the Omega show. This is the Bad Batch. And we need to see the Bad Batch doing what the Bad Batch does. Now my Zach's saying no, I don't know if I can handle another Rogue One. Well, buckle up,
Don't get me
buddy.
wrong. Yeah, this show is not a suicide mission. There's no way, and
No.
I definitely do see a season 2.
Oh yeah.
So Zach, don't worry, it's not a
Yeah.
suicide mission.
No. I mean, this show is probably going to go at least 4 seasons. I think this show's going to go 4 seasons.
You think 4 that long?
That's hefty. Yeah, that's hefty.
Um,
25 episodes, or however many there are.
Well, there's 16 episodes a season
16.
right now, because that's what I saw on IMDb that they're doing 16 episodes. If it goes 4 seasons, I'm happy. If it goes 3, I'm happy too. I mean, Resistance went 2, Rebels went 4, Clone Wars went 7, but you had to go 7 for Clone Wars because of just everything that happened in that show. Rebels could have gone longer, but 4 seasons I think is perfect for it. But this show, I, one of them is dying at the end of this first season. I guarantee you. And I think by the end of this show, the only person left standing is Crosshair. By the end of the show.
I think he
So-
goes down too.
To be completely honest, if they do not give the Bad Batch an actual reason to continue,
Yeah.
I don't see why they would go past one season.
Yeah.
Like we're 8 episodes in, and there is still not like a reason for the Bad Batch to be doing anything.
Yeah.
There's no end game. There is no goal. I mean, right now, like their goal is to get Omega back, but prior to that, what was it? It was to pay off their debt, and before that,
Yeah.
what was it? It was to escape the Empire, and
And
before
to lay
that,
low.
what was it? It was trying to figure out Order 66.
Yeah.
It's nothing long term. There is no end game. It's just, oh, we're playing it by ear. And if you're going to do that for 4 years, you're going to lose viewers. Like you
Yeah.
have to have an ultimate end game, and you need to try to make that clear within these next 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it might as well just be a suicide mission. It might as well be everyone dies at the end, and Crosshair's the last man standing and gets the last laugh. And you know what, to be completely honest, I would be fine with it ending that way rather than it being dragged on for 4 seasons, let
Yeah.
alone 2 seasons. They need to find a way to give this Bad Batch an ultimate in-game goal, which is lacking severely right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what did Rebels established an end game from the beginning. When you get to Rebels, it establishes the end game from the beginning. They're here to build the Rebel Alliance. By the end of Rebels, the Rebel Alliance is built. Spoiler alert, Joey.
I mean, that's just the Star Wars timeline. Like, it's obvious. Yeah, for sure.
But because I know you're about like halfway through Rebels, but getting to that point, you go through so much. With Resistance, it was to set up Rise of Skywalker. That's all. It was 2 seasons to set up that The Force Awakens happened, The Last Jedi happened, and Rise of Skywalker was coming. With Clone Wars, you had 7 seasons, but in Clone Wars, we already knew what the end game was because we had seen the original trilogy. It was the journey to get to that end game that was interesting about Clone Wars. You're exactly right, John. We have to establish an end game now. Either we're foreshadowing, either Filoni and company are foreshadowing that the Bad Batch are going to be utilized in a big way when it comes to the rebellion, and they're going to make it to the original trilogy, or these guys are going out by the end of this show. Regardless if you do 1 season or 2, it's time to establish some sort of end game. And if your end game is a confrontation between Hunter and Crosshair, then you've got to tease it more. One of the best things that Clone Wars did was teasing the eventual confrontation between Anakin Skywalker and General Grievous, because it helps lead to Anakin's downfall. You need to tease this confrontation between Hunter and Crosshair, because we all know it's going to happen. We all know it has to happen. These two have been butting heads since the beginning. So you're right, John. Establish an endgame. Give us something. Because as a viewer, I'm invested, but I need some sort of setup now. You're halfway through this season. It's time to set up the final half of this season. It's time to set up your season finale to go into season 2. So if anybody else has some thoughts on this, chat, please go ahead and talk also. But jump in, guys. And then we're going to start to wrap things up here.
I'm gonna say the most cliche thing ever and just give us some Palpy and Vader time. That's all we need.
Yeah,
There you go.
I think that goes to the whole Omega clone thing. Just tell us who Omega is. Because you tease that she's a Palpatine clone. Hey, Katie, thank you for the sub. You tease that she's a Palpatine clone. Well, we think it's a tease that she's a Palpatine clone, but we also think she's going to help be a prototype Death Trooper. But now I'm thinking, what if Palpatine was involved in, what if his blood is involved through Omega to be that prototype Death Trooper when it comes to
I'm going to
Crosshair?
be on the record. I am not going the Palpatine route. I feel
Okay.
like everyone I know is going that route, so I am
Yeah.
not going that route. I also don't think she's using the Death Trooper. I think it's going to be, I think she's going to be a character that Filoni is going to twist in a way we don't expect.
Yeah. Now, my question is now, because, I mean, we've talked about the Palpatine thing, and Joey, I know that you don't think that she's a Palpatine. Is she Force sensitive? I have to ask this question though. My
No,
my wife was just like, God, I'm so tired of hearing that question.
no.
Yeah,
She wouldn't have not known what to do with that bomb if she was force sensitive. She would have just
yeah,
like done something with the force. When she touched that dirt for the first time, it would have levitated into her hand and it wouldn't have just like fallen out like some sand.
yeah.
Episode 2
God.
reference with the sand there.
Oh yes. It's rough and coarse and gets
Yeah.
everywhere.
No,
Yep.
she's not force sensitive.
No.
She's not.
No, I like the idea more of her helping bring the Death Troopers into everything through Crosshair, like we talked about earlier. I just have to ask this question. Everybody asks this question, and my wife brought up a really good point. Can we have something where we don't have force sensitive characters? Just a straight up Star Wars story without force sensitive characters.
I
And
mean, we kind of have that right now, as long as they don't make anyone force sensitive.
yeah, well, yeah,
Except for
that's
our
true.
Inquisitor
That's
guy.
true.
Yeah.
Except, I mean, if you do the Inquisitors, you have to be smart about it. And I think the way that you do it is bringing in that Inquisitor from Rebels as like one of your first Inquisitors.
Zach says it's necessary.
Yeah, no, you think it's necessary? Zach, I love you, buddy. I do, but I don't think it's necessary either.
I mean, I would be stunned if they don't somehow loop the Inquisitors into this at the end.
Yeah,
I feel like
because
it's not
even young
necessary, but
Padawans
as
had
far as
to
like
train to be
overall
humble.
timeline
Yeah, that's
wise,
true.
I think it probably goes that direction.
First off, I absolutely love the autocorrect.
Yeah,
Because
padded
for Zach
ones.
to say
Yeah,
young padded ones, it's just like
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. But I get your point too, Zach, and that's please don't mind my dude. You're fine. You're fine. We're drinking, dude. It's fine. Um, but no, that's a good point too, where yeah, even Padawans did have to learn to understand the Force. But okay, I do have this one last question as we start to wrap things up here. Are we going to, because I wanted to see Cal Kestis so much, especially with the last two episodes being on Braca. Do we get any fugitive Jedi in the rest of this show, in the rest of this first season? I'm not talking about Force sensitive. I'm talking like full on rogue Jedi that isn't Kanan Jarrus, voiced by John's favorite actor, Freddie Prinze Jr.
Can't stand him.
No. No Jedi.
No.
I mean, I feel like we all know there's Jedi out there, but they
Yeah.
would all be in hiding right now, especially after they get that message that the Jedi Temple was destroyed.
Yeah.
They're going to be in hiding. Like there's really nowhere else for them to go. I don't know. I mean, after episode 8, if the whole thing with Cal Kestis was going to happen, I feel like this would have been the episode it was in. Because obviously I don't see them staying on Baraka too much longer.
No, they
Um,
left.
Yeah, so it's like it makes no sense. Like Cal Kestis' time came and gone. If he was going to be brought in, that's where it would have happened.
Yeah.
Unless he went someplace else before he went to Baraka, which could possibly happen.
Yeah.
But no, I feel like we won't see any more Jedi. I feel like this is literally the days, weeks, months, years right after the Empire is established and the Jedi are in hiding. They're not communicating. They're just absolutely just in exile in a cave somewhere.
Zach, I don't think we're gonna see Ahsoka, buddy. As much as people want to see Ahsoka, I don't think we're gonna see her. Rex mentions Ahsoka without saying her name, and so do the um Rafa and Trace, the Martez sisters. But I don't think we're gonna get Ahsoka at all, buddy. Now to go to your point, John, yeah, Cal Kestis should have crash landed on Braca already. And I think that that's what, because did he escaped in an escape pod, right?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
believe so.
that's right. Because for some reason I thought that he had crashed that Jedi starfighter that you see crashed in Fallen Order on the cruiser, but um, no, Joey, you don't think we're gonna see any Jedi either?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I think if they bring the Inquisitors in, there's always the
Yeah,
opportunity that they could bring a Jedi in as well. Without Cal Kestis appearing, I don't think we see one though. I'm kind of with John on this one.
yeah,
I feel like they're setting this up to be kind of like that Clone Wars esque story, just told from the Bad Batch point of view.
yeah,
They're showing the Empire taking over. I mean, similar to the movies in a sense, like you kind of get the Jedi approach and then the Empire approach and then
yeah,
back and forth. I think this to me is the non-Jedi approach.
yeah. And I think that that's what we need. We had Palpatine show up, so there's another Force sensitive person, another Force user, in that hologram in the beginning of in the pilot, essentially for the Bad Batch. Um, I don't think we're gonna see Kanan anymore. Some people have asked me if Kanan's coming. Nah, Kanan's not coming back because he's got to go on the run and eventually meet Hera, and and for Freddie Prince Jr. to come back and do that. Okay, let's talk about the voice acting real quick. Outside of Sup Balaba, I got the reinforcements that you want. Let's talk about D. Bradley Baker as all of these clones because he is incredible. Give this man an Emmy right now.
Mhm.
I
And
mean, why not just plug Freddie Prince Jr. in there as the voice of the clones? I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
Do not.
I take it you're a big fan of Scooby Doo, John.
no, I
Live
honestly,
action Scooby Doo.
completely honest, real quick, I cannot stand that guy as an actor. I can't
I
stand
get
him
it.
as a voice actor. And the fact that he has gone on a vendetta against Star Wars fans for like the past 5 years makes me hate the guy even more. Like, dude, you're a part of one of the biggest franchises in
Yeah.
human history, and all you can do is just crap all over the fan base every moment you get. Like,
And
yeah,
he's
like I get it. It's a kids series
yeah.
made for 12-year-olds
Yeah.
that talks on, well, what was the line whenever I bring this up for you, Eric, that talks about like all these other like crimes of against humanity and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that like every 12-year-old is sitting there and be like, you know what, human
Government
trafficking,
policies,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
something I
yeah.
need to pay attention to right now.
government
Yeah.
Like,
conspiracies and
Yeah,
planning.
so
exactly.
like sit here and continue to crap on the fan base that is literally giving you money. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why I hate his character so much is because of who is the voice actor for it. And I hate to admit that, but
Yeah.
like I just wish he would shut his mouth and just be happy
Yeah.
that people of all ages are still interested in Star Wars.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. This reminds me of your farming simulator esports rant on OTN.
Tell you what.
Oh god.
Freddie
You
Prince
can't say
Jr.
that with
over
that
there
profile.
is using John Deere tractor.
Oh god.
Oh, the farm boy Luke Skywalker over here come around yonder in the space John Deere
Anyway,
2000 right there.
and that
It's
is
They're
going
going
not.
south.
downhill quickly
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
end
it
of
This is
is. It
going
is.
south.
I'm sorry. I had to ask this question, and
Quite literally
I had to
going
bring
south.
this up, and I'm so sorry. We did not offend anybody, and we did not mean to offend anybody. If we did, I apologize for the for that. But yeah, I think that D. Bradley Baker is an amazing actor, especially when it comes to these clones. The woman playing Omega is fantastic.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Was okay. I get her confused. Was she the one in Tokyo Drift?
Oh, I have no idea.
Because she kind of looked like the one from Tokyo Drift.
I couldn't tell you. I have to
Okay, I'll have to
IMDb.
look it up at some point. I'll probably look it up after the broadcast. Zach said, "Look for a guy who literally just watched all of Star Wars." I don't think kids understand, let alone comprehend the meaning of most of it. That is true. That is true. Especially those deeper dives. So I just wanted to talk about the voice acting real quick and how phenomenal it is, and then I've got to talk about Kevin Kiner's music. Especially the music in that Cad Bane hunter scene where it gets all westerny and then you get those shots is just perfect. And Kevin Kiner has done 3 Star Wars shows now. He did Clone Wars, he did Rebels, and now he's doing the Bad Batch. And the guy just finds a way to incorporate so many great themes and just make and just make new music that has just cemented these stories in this saga. And I mean, all the love, Kevin, and I mean, I can't say enough. And if you guys want to jump in on that, go ahead.
It's a lot cheaper than getting John Williams and the London Symphony to do all these episodes.
It is.
For
So,
sure.
and he's doing a great job. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I think the music's been amazing. It's been on point. And I've said it once and I'll say it again. Music can change everything when it comes to a TV show and a movie.
Yep.
It makes you feel emotions that you may not be able to feel. Music is the ultimate communicator that speaks all languages.
Yeah.
And he's doing a fantastic job in this series so far.
Yeah.
That and body language as well. I mean,
Yeah.
both of those are huge communicative things that a lot of people don't necessarily touch on outside of like text and speech. I know we talked about music a lot on the episode that wasn't able to be released,
Yeah.
but just Star Wars and Harry Potter
Yep.
and Lord of the Rings, there's so many like epic series with these epic levels of music.
Yeah.
And even in video games, like looking at stuff like Halo, and it just really drives those series. It takes them to another level, just
Yeah.
feeling scenes and becoming encompassed within them because of that music. And I think Star Wars, once again, doing it here.
I think that's a testament to, and I'm gonna say this, and I know that there's people that don't like her. That's a testament to Kathleen Kennedy letting Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni make these decisions when it comes to that. Kathleen Kennedy is studio head for a reason, and it's because of reasons like this. Whether it be Ludwig Göransson with the score for The Mandalorian, which was just absolutely incredible.
Oh, badass.
Whether it be John Powell with Solo and just the themes in that, Michael Giacchino with Rogue One. Rogue One doesn't work without that score, in my opinion. Rogue One doesn't work without that score. And then, of course, John Williams with the episodic movies, and now Kevin Kiner with these TV shows. Music, as John said, is an important part of the story. And this show has nailed it, and I think that's what keeps us. That's one of the reasons why we keep coming back week after week. What's that, Porg? It's almost time. Okay, so my Porg's telling me it's time to wrap things up. But as we go, I just want to thank you all so much for joining us for this live show. It was so much fun. John, Joey, you guys are welcome back anytime you guys want to come on and just talk the Bad Batch or talk Star Wars.
So don't
What
return
have
the
you.
cloak, John.
Yeah, so don't.
Don't
I will
return
keep
that
it.
cloak.
I'll
Yeah.
keep it.
Yeah.
And I love the red lighting too. Dane,
I may not do that next time. It's
Yeah.
it's playing with my vision a little bit
yeah.
here, but
Well, you've also been, drinking a little bit too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Too much Moscow.
Yeah.
stop.
But and we only got into one drink tonight, and that was sad. I was gonna at one point refill, but it's fine. Uh, Gentlemen, thank you, Dana. As always, you are awesome. And to everybody, we're going to be back next week. I'm actually going to be broadcasting live from my parents' house in Florida. I'm actually going to be visiting my parents for a few days next weekend. So I'm going to be live from their house. And I just also want to wish everybody happy Father's Day. I didn't forget that this was Father's Day weekend, but happy Father's Day to our Star Wars dads out there and to all of our dads out there. So happy Father's Day. Just remember, may the Force be with you. May you always fight for light and life. And just remember that, except for John, we are all the Republic. So,
We are all except for John the Republic.
yes, thank you for tuning in. As Joey said, this was a lot of fun. We will see you next week for some more Star Wars fun and excitement. Have a good night, everybody. We will see you.